usually have a disclaimer slide. And the disclaimer here is that I'm going to be using a build of Dynamo that is like...
Ooh, we're not allowed to see it.
Well, no, you can see it, it's fine. Because Dynamo is completely open source. This is basically the daily build. But the daily build is like, you know, put your hard hat on.
By the way, daily, for real,
Yeah.
new Dynamo, so.
Well, yeah, so just a couple of things about the Dynamo process, which are, you know, you might never contribute to the Dynamo project, but just so you know how we build it. From the beginning, we've been building Dynamo as completely open source. So all of the code that underlies both the core application and the version that you see running on top of Reddit is available on GitHub. So if anybody's interested at all in any of the code, or just seeing how things are implemented, or even just seeing the conversation that goes on between the developers. So for instance, at 2 a.m. last night, I published this, what's called a pull request, which is like, I want this new piece of software in here, and I had to publish an architectural diagram and everything else. And this is literally like the guts of Dynamo development. We've tried to be very honest and open and very transparent about the way that we develop the software, and include users as much as possible.
Okay. Where did you say this is?
This is GitHub. So this is a site called GitHub, which is a code sharing repository.
Watch it, you'll get lost for like 12 hours there.
There was a question on the last one, because we have both sides. We have the Dynamo side of the user, and we have the code writer. And then the question was, because Dynamo, the code is hidden, and doing something that spell the code.
So, okay, so there's a couple of things there. So one, actually probably the more, the way that we write all the built-in functionality for Dynamo is using .NET. So all of the core of Dynamo is written in C# and is compiled to assembly. All those little DLLs that you see in the program directories, that's basically what we compiled all that. However, in Dynamo, you can do things like you can create a Python node. And Python node, let's start opening up the node here. We put this in there when Dynamo was quite young because we thought people probably wanted another way without having to compile code to be able to script stuff. So we said, well, Python's a pretty good language for this. It's very widely adopted. It's got a very easy to sort of access syntax for people who aren't programmers by nature of training. So we put these Python nodes in here, and they just kind of like caught on like wildfire. They're like an invasive species. Now, I hate to say that because I actually love, you know, many of our developers have developed exclusively in Python. So you can just open up a Python node, you can plug it in, it has variable ports, so those ports all come in an array. And then this Python editor here has access to the entire remedy team. So many of these guys, Conrad, who I was showing earlier, who has the Bumblebee package and another package called Mantis Strip, had never developed with the remedy before Dynamo. And he just got started on scripting in Python for Grasshopper and other places, and was like, hey, I think I can do this. So he just popped up the Python node. And now he has like these incredibly powerful tools that are basically built in Python. So you don't have to know how to compile code at all. You can pop open Python node and use code this way. The other way, so as of version 0.80 of Dynamo, we have what's called design script. So for those of you who have been following computational design projects, design script is a project that was started by Robert H. 4 or 5 years ago, and actually the part of the Dynamo team that sits in Singapore is the design script team. And what we did when they came on board, when we merged with the design script project, we basically took out the existing engine of Dynamo and replaced it with an engine based on design script. So design script is a language that's wholly owned and designed and developed by us. And it allows us to make it do all kinds of very interesting things. So, for instance, one of the things, we'll see if this works in video, but I'm actually not sure I turned it on. But okay, so let's just try adding a couple of numbers. So this is like a very simple visual program that adds, the answer. So right? So because everything you see in Dynamo as you're writing this thing is basically compiled down to an intermediate representation, which we call abstract syntax trees, which are then executed by the design script virtual machine. And because we own this language, we can make it do all kinds of interesting stuff. Like if you take these nodes and you want to condense them, you can say collapse that into code, and it'll actually convert that chunk of your graph down into the code that represents it. Now, for beginning users, this might, you might never use this. However, it's a really good, again, this topic of learning tools. Like, how do I learn? If I did want to get into writing scripts, how would I learn how to do that? What was one way to do it? Make the graph first, and then you say, make that into code. And you've got this sort of little script, this little function that will basically do exactly what you do. So I should probably, for those of you who have never seen Dynamo, who don't know what Dynamo is, show you around a little bit. Dynamo, visual programming interface, has a 3D view in the background. So everything that you're creating here is actually being generated in 3D in the background. It has a little library over here of commands that usually take the format, point by coordinates. So like, I want to create a point, and here's how I want to do it. Go ahead.
Is there a lexicon of sorts for me to go through and understand? You know what I mean? How do I identify what are the different commands? That's my struggle. It's kind of like learning a language. The grammar is there, but what's the vocabulary?
Right. So when Dynamo first started, somebody said to me, they said, you need icons. Because Grasshopper had these icons. No icons. It's all search anymore. You go to Google, you type in what you want, you get back.
Those are English words. Those are like real words.
But what I totally underestimated the fact that exactly what you're pointing out, which is like, how do I even get into this thing? If I was a user, didn't know anything, didn't know what I wanted to do, like, how do I start knowing anything? So for 0.80, I think, we released a version of the library that has all that. So at the very least, when you come in your default experience in Dynamo, you open it up, the geometry tab is open. And you can go in here and you can say, oh, a circle? How do I make a circle? Oh, there's all these different ways to make a circle. Nice. Right? So like that's, and then in addition, now both here and in any place that you can search, when you find the function that you're looking for, you get this little fly-out that tells you something about what the function is. What are the inputs to that function? So we're not there yet by any means. We can always get better at the sort of experience, the first time experience. But it's a hell of a lot better than it used to be. So what I would say, what I would recommend, because there's no like big book someplace that says like, here's every node that is in the manual, just browse. Come in here and look at some of these are categories that I have loaded as packages. And you can see this little PKG here, which duplicates those. But some of them are built-in functionality that's available.
What? Just a suggestion. What I use I do every year. To capture out everything in Reddit is you have like Camtasia that take text and floating windows.
Yeah.
Just go through every single button. I'm serious. Capture it all.
Well, I'm laughing
and every
people
fly
have
on.
done it.
And then just start, okay, here's everything. What the hell is this? Whatever you know, and really, that's how you're going to do it. And it's probably the stupidest thing I've ever continued to use, but how do you eat an elephant?
Yeah.
One bite at a time. I didn't know language, I didn't know architecture when I started, so the thing is, sometimes we're too smart for our own good. We see what we can possibly do there, and I want to do it now, but that overwhelms me. No. One small thing. One thing. Change, find out how it can change your name. Something. One thing. Next thing. Next thing. And then before you know it,
That's good advice.
you really, because we humans, this is just, the more I deal with teaching software and techniques, it's not about teaching the buttons. It's psychology. And we make things more complicated than we have to because we're humans, and that's what got us out of the savannah. Well, now we have to simplify things because they're so complex. So you have to just simplify.
Okay.
Simplify.
For me, the copy, that's being, because, and I kind of bring it to my daughter, she has a little bit in language, and sometimes she repeats and she doesn't know what it means, but she repeats, but she'll get it, but Coke, Coke.
Yeah, well, she's down there.
Not that-
Oh, yes, sorry, Mom.
So it's the same thing, if you do an exercise over and over and over again, you start getting familiar with the same, because I've been doing Marcelo's examples, and then I'm like, well, I want to do this, so I go back to my family, put the name of the family, and then put it in the search bar, if it comes out, then I try 2 or 3 of them,
Right.
until I get it, or until it becomes what I wanted.
Well, now the awesome thing is we all have Ian's email address.
But it's.
That's right.
But I'm certain,
Day and night. Right, so the question that I'm getting here is, actually, I was gonna show an example of this. So Dynamo, how does it actually attach to things in Revit? So if you've ever used Grasshopper on top of Rhino, you basically bake. You know, when you're done doing your complex geometry, you press bake, and it bakes some geometry. Now that's disconnected from Grasshopper. The thing with Dynamo is it's always connected to your Revit. And it's dealing with real Revit stuff. There's no big operation. So I'm going to see if, let me see if this project has any framing. We're going to do a very simple example of how this works. Okay, we've got one W section. Okay, so if I just open up a new Dynamo workflow on top of this project, so I'm in the project environment here, and I do something as simple as make a point. And actually, let's make 2 points. And I'm just going to put one sort of somewhere else in space. Actually, turn off. If you're in automatic run mode down here, it's always executed. So it's like whatever you do is trying to communicate with Revit from the other side of that. So what we're going to do is we're going to start. We're going to make a line.
And is it just that people on the interwebs like to complain, or is that probably not the thing you want to do as a general rule?
Well, I'll tell you what, Colin McCrone, who's our technical evangelist, he's the Dynamo evangelist, he always turns it into manual. Because he's never quite sure what's going to take a long time to write. Some of the things we can control it takes a long time, like if you do very simple operations like making a bunch of reference points, making a bunch of model curves, changing levels, and stuff like that. If you accidentally change a parameter on something at the beginning of your workflow and at the end of your workflow, it's placing 10,000 adaptive components, like, whoops.
So the funny thing is, he trained us when I was at HPE, home
Yep.
for 2 days. And I was there, and it was like a mind expansion experiment. But at the end of it, I was like not sure where to get started, you know, he's very capable too.
Yeah, so you have to, that's why, and for those of you who have used Dynamo, this is probably a very simplistic example. You have to start with something super, super simple, just so people kind of understand the relationships. So let's just put this thing out here in space someplace. So you'll see that in the background when I'm actually executing this thing, it's actually creating my line. Okay? No big deal. I created a line. Okay. Nothing. Thank you. Good. There's nothing in Revit yet, and so what we want to do is we want to start actually putting stuff in Revit. So the thing that I want to do is I want to make a piece of structural frame. Okay. So as I start typing this, I get a bunch of options. So let's create a beam. Oh, sorry, that's the structural type. And so the curve is basically going to be this line. Remember when I was talking about consistency of the port name? Like this says line, but this says curve. So the beginning user would be like, well, I'm going to put a curve in there, and that says line. So this will ultimately say curve because lines are type. But so that's the kind of stuff that we're constantly like sweeping back through and then stuff. So then it wants a level. Okay, so there's a bunch of different ways in Dynamo and Power Revit that you can get stuff that's built into your Revit project. So if I get the levels node, you get this little drop down, and the drop down is all the levels that are actually in your Revit project. Okay, so this is like the architectural thing that I would and then the last thing it wants before it will do anything is a structural framing type. Remember when I talked about structural or family symbols versus family types? I think this is where I get in trouble. Oh, no.
Well, it's not like you made the software or anything.
It's not like I know what I'm doing. Okay, did make the mistake of loading something with like 1,000 different family types. Okay, so the one I want is this one right here, which is just a structural, and I would zoom in on this because unfortunately this part doesn't zoom. So sorry after that. And I plug this in here, okay? So now I have the structural framing beam by curve that's going to make things associated with level 1. Doesn't necessarily mean it's going to place them on level 1. It's going to place them wherever this curve is in space, but it's going to associate that with level 1. You know, like when you change the elevation of level 1, things associated with level 1 are going to, you know, and then I'm just going to go ahead and run this. All right, yeah, Brock, what a flaming second. No, it could be, you know what, wait, it might be because, I might be in metric, it might be trying to create a beam that's 10 millimeters long. Well, it's fixed, the problem is I think the template is in that. Now, Dynamo, so to Karen's question, we used to have this whole unit system in Dynamo, and it didn't make sense like what units you were actually using. Now, it inherits the units that are in vector. So when you put in 1 in Dynamo on top of a project that's in millimeters, it's 1 millimeter. So the problem that's happening here, as I said, make a beam that's 10 millimeters long, thinking that it is in decimal feet. So let's go ahead and change this.
How much can I expect any of the Dynamo stuff built in one set of units to blow up when somebody changes the units of the project halfway through?
What will happen is that everything, it will just then interpret the units as that unit.
Okay.
You know,
No, that's all right.
Actually, this is the problem with live software demos.
Can you try this with a simple wall?
Oh, no, let him do it, man.
Make them sweat.
Switch it in the middle, no, we need to see that finish.
He hauled it out here,
Make
make
him
them sweat.
There's a great Bill Cosby sketch about being on live TV, which I won't recount for you here, but the punchline is grab your head. You're not great thing. Okay, so what am I doing wrong?
Yeah, let's find it.
That are in the audience.
If you look at every single little watch.
That's very interesting. Okay, well, let's go on to another example. So what I'm meaning to show here is actually creating a structural framing.
Are you feeding coordinates into the first point?
No, it's not
The
there.
XYZ?
No, everything's okay.
Your start point? Have you set up one? Start point has no value, right?
Yeah, it's at 0, 0. It's just, it will connect from
That's
0,
just the
0.
start, yeah.
Sometimes it's undoing it.
Oh, yeah, you need to fix it. We need, yeah.
Everybody's gonna run back to the desk.
No, absolutely, because, I mean, think of it, this is how it goes, man.
Yeah.
You know, designing stuff. This
Okay,
is-
let's try something.
It's because that was a line, not a curve, man.
Could be. Let's see if we get lucky with the sample content that actually bundled with the
Oh,
application.
that's cheating.
That is cheating.
Ah. Pull out the Betty Crocker and it's done.
Well, it won't be done. We'll just see it eventually run.
Basically, you're bringing the pie out of the oven that was already baked.
Cool. Who did that? What was her name? Julia Childs.
So this is the same thing as if you opened Dynamo on top of Revit and went to help samples. This is actually what you get. You get this version of the very simple sort of Revit project with the roof torn off. This was made by the illustrious Zach Curley.
They finally get the warnings out of that thing?
And for a good reason. Let's see. Example is Revit. Let's see the Revit structural thing. Okay. So I'll have to go back I can see what's going on in the other one. But, so basically what happened here is that what the Dynamo workflow is doing is it's got a couple of select nodes. What are these nodes doing? These nodes allow you to actually go into the rep model and select stuff. So you press select on this, or you press change now on this button. You can actually go into Reddit and you can select objects, which are then carried into Dynamo. So here when we talk about elements, an element is basically anything that you see in Reddit. A wall, a beam, a window, a piece of entourage, planting, whatever. They're all elements. So you can go and you can select one of those. We also have to select model elements. But what he did was he went in here and he selected 2 edge curves that are along the top edges of these walls here. And then he basically just said, make me some points on those curves at this spacing. So I want to go from 0 to 1, and this is where it's the point of like, how do I even learn the syntax? And this is something like the Dynamo primer. You go to the little section where it talks about this type of range syntax, and they'll tell you all the different ways that you can say from 0 to 1, which is saying from the beginning of that beam to the end of that beam, give me X number of things. What's X? It's that. It's defined by a slider. So if I change this slider and say do complete, now at 22 things here, which is all the 22 beams. Now, the very tail end of this, what I was trying to do just a minute ago, was a much simpler example, which wasn't working for me. This could be wrong. He's using the structural framing types and not the family types. How did you know? So same thing, structural framing, beam by curve, and we're plugging in just another level, a collection of curves, and a type. And it's making these things. Now, because we don't bake anything, this is actually a Reddit beam. If you click on this thing, it's got properties. If you change those properties will be set forever. You can schedule those things, you can do anything that you want in Reddit. They draw correctly. There's nothing at all that's different or strange about those beams, aside from the fact that they have this association with Dynamo. So that if you go, and this is what makes the Dynamo experience on top of Reddit just slightly volatile, is that
You think?
if you go, yeah, exactly. So, say you have some facade that has 1,000 panels on it, and somebody's gone in and entered data on the panels, and then you say, actually, I only want 500 panels. Let's make them all 2 times as wide, 2 times as tall. And it just blows away 500 panels and all the data because it can do that. So this is where we've seen Dynamo scripts sort of interjected into parts of the process, used for time and then taken away. Like, okay, we set out that geometry, now take Dynamo away so that somebody can't come in here and And what we are doing is we're investigating ways to do a kind of a similar big thing, or at least detach from these elements.
How about you never know?
You can't, yeah.
How about somebody's in the project, selects that beam, just want to changes it to another one.
Right.
Doesn't tell anybody. That direction.
Well, so here's a good example. So let's take this beam and see if we can switch it to something else. This is a plywood web joist. Now I'm going to show you 2 interesting things here. One, we're running in manual mode. So I'm going to go in here and I'm actually going to say, let's change it to round 2. Okay, easy enough. We do this in Reddit all the time, right? Okay. If I run this thing again, it's a plywood joist. Because the type that I have selected in Dynamo is that plywood joist.
And it knows that element ID.
And it knows that element. That's how it's bound to things. So Dynamo maintains an association for all these nodes, for all the nodes that both create things in Reddit and the nodes that you've selected things out of Reddit. It maintains that element ID. So if that element ID doesn't change, it's bound to that element.
What about when the user deletes it because it's just that damn line in my way?
So it's like you're leading through this thing.
Oh, okay. Are these all softballs? I just didn't know that.
It is. And after the initial experience, I'll take all the softball again. So we go in here and we grab this guy and we delete him. What I did was I turned Dynamo into automatic.
Automatic mode.
So this is to the point earlier of document modification events. Dynamo also, for all the things that create elements, it responds to document modifications. Or you can, some nodes respond to document modifications. So in this case, what it's doing is it's saying, I know I created I created this number of elements, and then somebody did something in Revit. And the node that creates structural framing basically says like, if the operation that the person did in Revit affected anything that I was bound to, any of the elements.
You give them the
bound to,
finger and redo it.
Rerun the thing. So it reruns it.
Is there just a pure reporting? So if people make changes, it allows the change, but, pings you?
Well, it handles different changes in different ways. So like, if you change a parameter on that beam, Dynamo doesn't care. But if you delete the beam or move the beam, Dynamo cares. So like, if I grab the end of this beam and I took it, now, it seems kind of crazy, but at the same time, imagine, so one of the problems when we first built Dynamo was like, if you have a complex surface and you want a bunch of beams to stay stuck to it, and you want the points that they're stuck to be some UV parameters on that surface, like when I change that surface, I want those beams to be stay stuck to that surface. And that's what they're
Two things. Number one, if you don't have Dynamo open and running with that specific script or routine for that project, the one of the most wonderful things about Revit, unlike Rhino, you can have multiple people in the same file simultaneously. And if only one person, nobody's in Dynamo at all, it's not running. It's not going to run that automatic process until at least one person has a script of some kind running.
Yep.
So that might not be evident until you're later inside the process and somebody opens it up and sets to auto and boom, now everything is
Yeah, so, I mean.
whack.
Still gotta deal with people, man.
You still gotta deal with people.
Right, for sure. But it might not be, the communication process through that design process and so on. The second part is if it isn't throughout that whole team, there's a communication loss potentially. So it's
Yeah, so the way that I've seen this dealt with, because Dynamo is still relatively young software, the thing we have to compare it to is like the way that people use Grasshopper.
The workflow.
And they come up with these really rigorous standards. Yep. And when you open up a Grasshopper project that say KPF is using to design a tower in Shanghai, there's like little glyph sort of graphics that say, this is what this part of the graph does, this is what this part of the graph does. There's notes in there that say, do not turn this node on until you're ready to blah, blah, blah.
You
Right.
will get fired for touching this.
And they've developed their own sort of standards.
but inherently, Rhino is single player.
Oh, yes and no. I mean, these guys are working on workflows that have a lot of like XREF stuff and everything else. So we're the Rhino.
It's a CAD mentality instead of a database mentality where you have multiple players in it concurrently.
There will be, yes, there is a new dimension of challenges that this brings
Right.
being on top of that.
Workflow.
And we're still seeing the kind of standards that come up around this stuff. What we've seen in terms of standards so far is people using like scripts in very targeted ways. Like get in there, use it like a script, get out. Like you just turn it on to do whatever you need to do to automate some process and then you get out. It's not the time of always running and doing stuff.
And if you're doing this, you're probably one person laying out the structure, so it's not like 10 other people are gonna get in, I'm gonna lay those same beams. You better, as a project manager, have talked about who's gonna do what when, and, with a little bit of, tweaking, we should stay out of each other's ways on that.
So let's try another example here. So that's basically how Dynamo sort of stays associated with elements of the model and how it responds to document modifications. What if we wanted to do a workflow, and you'll notice also that it leaves those beams behind. It's not like when you leave Dynamo, it automatically deletes everything, because that would be another version of the problem. Yes, if you delete that beam now, Dynamo is no longer looking at that thing. So it'll just.
If you still had Dynamo open and it was in the automatic and you copied one of those beams, a new one, is it gonna like boing back or like how
If you copied it, no, because that creates
now
a new
it's
element
detached?
ID, but it doesn't know anything
Okay,
about it.
gotcha.
So you might have come up with a clever way to just like bake, just copy paste in place if you want to do that.